So the last video I put up, I was in a real hard place, after hearing the news about my mom. And, I started letting what the doctors have said about my mom and, the results of the supposed test. And, what really opened to my eyes to the fact that I let this world get to me is what a brother said. He said that it is not God's will for us to be sick. And so when I heard that, I was like, it's right. He is right. And I had not battled this. I prayed for my mom, I fasted and such that, the news wouldn't turn out to be that way, but it had. So I let my focus be on the world. I was looking at things from the worldly point of view rather than God. And I didn't battle at that moment. I didn't battle what was said. I took it as face value. And so I realized that God can do everything. God can do the impossible. If he can give sight to the blind, if he could provide so many times in my life with impossible situations, he did the impossible in my life. And he could do so in this situation as well. And so, I started praying over my mother. I anointed her. I'm cursing any kind of sickness. I'm getting rid of negative words from people. And it seems like an uphill battle. Like, you would think, according to James, that, if someone is sick, you bring them to church, they lay hands on them, anoint them, and that sick person will become well. But what do you do if the church does not believe in God's healing? They're just praying over somebody. It said the faith, a prayer offered in faith will make the sick person well. How many actually had faith, or they just, lift their hands up, pray over somebody, and not even think of having faith before you pray? And so it's a hard thing to do, but it's necessary that before you pray for somebody, you got to remember what God can do. If he can give sight to the blind, if he can raise the dead, he can do the impossible. So when we have that in mind, that should give us the faith to know that God can heal somebody. So I wanted to make sure I'm doing that with my mom each time I'm praying over her. And in the hospital, she had the hardest time trying to talk, trying to speak what was on her mind. But since I've been praying for her, since, a lot of people have prayed for her, she's starting to speak more clearly. I mean, there are times when she has problems getting the words out, but I can understand her clearly. And we've been taking communion together. I've anointed her. I've prayed over her. I've had people praying over her. And so I recall when a couple came over from the church, they prayed over her. And, my mother had problems speaking before that. But afterwards, she started speaking clearly. See, I was realizing, this is something with this. So I had to keep constantly praying over her and believing, constantly speaking life into her. And I sent her scriptures of God's healing. She reads them and it has helped her. So this is an uphill battle. There's a lot of people around us that speak negative, speak death and such, but I refuse to believe that. I'd rather be fighting through faith, knowing what God can do, than to just let things happen. And I'm not going to do that. And I know in my last video, I was letting what this world had said get to me, and I can't do that. I have to fight with faith because I know what God had done in the past. He did the impossible, and this situation isn't going to be any different. So I wanted to share that with you. Thank you for taking the time to watch.